The New York Times just came out with a poll that shows us leading everywhere by a lot. I think we're probably leading in New Jersey. We had a rally, over 100,000 people this weekend. A lot of the mainstream media didn't want to say how many people. They didn't want to cover it.
Former President Trump touting the new polls, which put him ahead of President Biden in 5 key battleground states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. All 5 are states Biden won in 2020. The poll also finds Trump leading Biden among 18 to 29-year-old voters, 46% to 43%. But White House Press Secretary Cory Jean-Pierre claims that President Biden is on the same page as younger generations. Watch this.
We believe that young Americans support the president's agenda more broadly, right, in an overwhelming way. When it comes to climate change, that's something that he's been very clear about and has been the most progressive president on that particular issue. We want to make sure that we have an economy that works for young people. We want to make sure that we listen to young people and hear them out. We want to make sure that we continue to work on some of the issues that the president has talked about, whether it's student debt relief.
Joining me now is Kansas Senator Roger Marshall, a member of the Senate Budget, Homeland Security, Agriculture, and Health Committee. Senator, good to see you. What's your reaction to Cory Jean-Pierre there?
Well, Maria, first of all, the young people I talk to are very frustrated. They're spending $1,000 more each month just to get by, just for their groceries, their rent, that type of thing. They've seen the cost of a new mortgage double under Joe Biden as well. The number one concern for young folks is their safety and security and the economy. Inflation is killing them. This is the worst economy of my professional lifetime right now. They're feeling the pinch of it. They're ready for a change.
Well, I mean, it's amazing to me. It's all politics, and it's quite exhausting to hear over and over again, like whatever group it is, well, the president aligns with the black community, the president aligns, you know, he grew up in Puerto Rico. I mean, all this stuff. And we all know that it's just because it's an election year. Now she's saying it about young people.
Yeah, so he's doing things. Listen again, don't listen to what he says, watch what he does. And his actions are killing the economy, increased regulations. Those are killing small businesses, and they're hurting young people the most. So that's the number one issue. You can talk what you want to about different issues, but the number one concern for young folks, and really for everybody, safety and security in the economy. Joe Biden is on his way out. November can't get here soon enough.
And you write about this in your new FoxNews.com op-ed this morning. You write Biden's unvetted migrant parole plan, putting every community at risk. You write, quote, a crucial tool in Biden's mass parole scheme is the Customs and Border Patrol One app, CBP One app. Migrants schedule parole appointments at American airports while they're still in their home countries. Then the administration allows illegal aliens to use this mobile app as a valid form of ID for boarding domestic flights. Senator, you're fighting against migrants using this CBP One app at Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. Tell us what's going on.
Right. So Congress has the authority to determine who flies in and out of Washington, D.C. So what we're saying is if these airlines are bowing to Biden's plan here, which I think is illegal, then they shouldn't be able to fly into D.C. More specifically, under Joe Biden, he has paroled 400,000 people from Cuba, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, from Venezuela that have already been flown into some 40 different cities across America right now. There's 1.6 million people on the waiting list, and I can guarantee you these people have not been vetted properly. So we're trying to figure out some way to slow down Joe Biden in this plan. We're telling the airlines, if you're using that CBP One app as a valid ID, then we're saying you can't fly into D.C. I wish I could do more, but I don't think that that's the same thing as a driver's license, a passport. Again, these people have not been vetted. 400,000 of them flown into this country with your taxpayers' dollars.
So, I mean, look, we're talking about this a lot lately. You've got a lot of people, senators, representatives in the House, who are trying to come up with ideas to stop illegals from voting in the U.S. election. We just showed a flyer that Texas Congressman August Pfluger brought to us. There's a flyer going around near the border, which illegals are picking up, and the flyer talks about how illegals can vote in Washington, D.C. for a number of positions, like the mayor, like the attorney general. Do you have any evidence that illegals are actually voting in our elections?
Well, they are absolutely going to be voting in the Washington, D.C. elections, in those local elections. They're being recruited to vote. So it's happening. There's 3 or 4 states that are going to allow this to happen as well. I saw California, Maryland. They're going to allow illegal aliens to vote in their local elections. I just want to make sure your listeners understand Washington, D.C. has become a war zone. I fear for the safety and life of my workers on Capitol Hill walking to and from work. Every day, every week, we hear of vandalism, carjacking, violent threats, violent actions against people up here. It's no longer safe. Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's a federal district. The Constitution clearly states that Congress has the authority to oversee the local governance. That's why we have legislation that would require people voting in these Washington, D.C. local elections to be citizens of the United States. For the sake and the safety of our government and our people visiting us, we need to make sure that Washington, D.C. is a safe place.
Yeah, and we're just looking at this flyer that is being given to illegals. Are you ready for the 2024 election season, it writes. And it says, reminder to vote for President Biden when you're in the United States. We need another 4 years of his tenure to stay open. Senator, you've introduced a new bill preventing illegal migrants from voting in D.C. elections by requiring proof of citizenship in order to cast a ballot in a municipal election. A federal court recently dismissed a challenge to the 2022 law, which allows non-citizens to vote in Washington, as you just said. Texas Congressman August Pfluger, as I mentioned, was with me just a few minutes ago on this program about illegal migrants participating in our elections. Watch.
The administration, President Biden, for the last 3 years have continually torn down the idea of being a citizen, that it's no longer important. We don't want administrators who are administering our elections to be illegal aliens. We want the gold standard to be citizenship. This flyer is basically telling you, this is specifically to the Washington, D.C. area, that if you're a non-citizen, get ready to vote. You can vote in the local elections. It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist to look at this and say, well, how are you preventing them from voting in other elections? Let's just say the presidential election.
Senator, this is incredible. What more can be done here? Tell us more about your bill.
Well, listen, I want to make sure your listeners understand there is federal law right now that requires citizenship to be able to vote in a federal election. So whether it's the president, the Senate, or your House members, they have to be citizens. But right now, what's being happened is this is being circumvented by allowing people to register to vote, even though they're not citizens, register to vote for local elections. Then that's going to explode into the federal elections when people, that person running the polling booth can't delineate the two. So our bill specifically targets Washington, D.C. and says that if you're not a citizen, you cannot vote in the D.C. election. Again, Washington, D.C. is a federal district. It's not a state. So therefore, Congress oversees those elections. We need a mayor. We need people electing a mayor who's going to keep Washington, D.C. safe, keep Congress, the Supreme Court, those type of people safe as well, and allow people to come from home and to petition their Congress members.
Do you think that's why Joe Biden has an open border?
No doubt about it. He thinks that these 11 million people that have crossed the border illegally are future voters for the Democrat Party. I think is going to be surprised. Again, the focus, the number one issue of this election is law and order. Joe Biden is on the way out. That President Trump will be the president of law and order. He's going to secure our borders. He's going to have the back of our law enforcement officers. This is the number one defining issue. Going back to your first segment here, this is why the polls are rising for Donald Trump, because the people know that Donald Trump will be the president of law and order.
Well, maybe, but first he's got to get through all these indictments. Are you worried about this New York trial?
So I'm watching it. What this trial is doing is actually emboldening President Trump's voters. They are going to get out and vote. No matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, people are going to get out and vote to support President Trump. And I think as they see this Michael Cohen on there today, this is the star witness for the prosecution, mind you. He's written, 2 books. One of them's Disloyal and one of them's Revenge. This guy is a known felon. He's been convicted. He's lied to Congress. And this is the star witness. And we still haven't seen what is the crime that President Trump ever done. So I think that Americans are seeing this for what it's worth, and I hope that they have a good outcome here for the trial. But this is emboldening American voters to get out and support President Trump, where he's going to have a record turnout. What did he have in New Jersey this weekend? Was it 40,000 to 80,000? Yeah. Joe Biden couldn't get 40 people to walk across the street to hear him talk.
Senator, we'll be watching all of that. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right,
Maria.
Senator Roger Marshall this morning.